Solitary confinement is simply torture. It's been well known for a long time. It's savagery. Mass incarceration is an incredible crime. All of these things are a true international scandal. He's a striking case, but it's far more general. The maximum security prisons in the United States are horrendous. I mean, they make Guantanamo look like a vacation resort. Same with death row. Executions in the United States are far beyond the norm. There are very few countries, except ones we'd prefer not to mention, which use the death penalty either at all or anything like the U.S. does. Noam Chomsky for Mumia Abu-Jamal. Prison and government officials are trying to censor and silence Mumia Abu-Jamal. I stand as one of many Americans who believe that there's a tremendous value in his voice being heard. I and others will fight to make sure that both his voice and his body are free. How much is your child worth? How much is your grandchild worth? These are not trick questions. They arise from the news that North Carolina recently announced cash compensation to thousands of survivors of their state sterilization program that ran from 1929 to 1974, an astonishing 45 years. North Carolina was but one of the many, mostly southern states that sterilized people whom it considered as defective. In this, they were supported by authorities as august as the U.S. Supreme Court, which in its now infamous Buck v. Bell 1927 decision found that a state could properly sterilize its citizens, and citizens had no constitutional right to oppose it. For, in the words of Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. A North Carolina task force recommended payment of $50,000 for each survivor. North Carolina shouldn't be the whipping boy here, for such practices took place nationally with federal government support. Historians and scholars Mary Frances Berry and John Blassingame, in their 1982 work, Long Memory, The Black Experience in America, New York, Oxford University Press, they tell us that as late as the 1970s, the United States Department of Health, Education, and Welfare was forcing 100,000 to 150,000 people to be sterilized annually. Over 90% of these people were black. This horrific state practice and the U.S. Supreme Court's chilling reasoning in support of it gives us some insight into how social prejudices and attitudes percolate into all sections of society, and despite their self-evident madness, are seen by seemingly enlightened sectors as perfectly reasonable, only to be later tarnished as repellent with the passage of time. If a state or nation could sterilize its own so-called citizens, deny people the right and ability to have children, what is such a state or nation but a dictatorship of arrogance and power? One day, perhaps sooner than we suppose, we shall look back at the phenomenon of mass incarceration and the prison industrial complex as proof of a mad society. Perhaps such a future state will pay reparations, compensation to their survivors in 75 or 80 years, if any survive. Noam Chomsky for Mumia Abu-Jamal.